Can you please share with us what it is that Morpho is looking to achieve, and what is your your goal?
Sure. So our idea is to restore a maximum of rainforest ecosystems in tropical areas. So actually we started in Central Africa, French Guiana, in Brazil. And the idea is by 2030 to restore 1 million hectares of biodiverse forest, using like social impact in all our projects to make it happen and to make it viable along the way. So how do we do that? We have three main pillars. The first pillar, like three technology pillars, and then we have like three objectives in our forest. The first pillar is that we are using this seed pod technology, and it's like a full ecosystem in which we put the seeds, we put nutrients, we put like biology, microbiology, so it's fungi, it's bacteria that we find into the soils to restore the soils, to restore forests from really degraded lands. And so you can see that we just planted them 4 days ago, and it's already a small tree. So that's the first one, and when we have this seed pod, we put them into drones, into planting drones, plantation drones, and they are like seeding all that with a pace of 50 hectares per day. And when we compare to the actual traditional methods, which are great because they are working, it's 1 hectare per day per person.
Wow.
And so one pilot can go up to 50 hectares per day with one drone. And so this idea is to use this drone technology to scale forest restoration. But it's not finished when we have done the plantation, since we are monitoring this forest for like 30 years to make sure that the ecosystem we restored is actually working. So we follow the biomass growth, the biodiversity restoration, since we are planting 30 to 50 species per project, project we are deploying, and we can deduce the carbon absorption of this forest thanks to the first two factors.
Fantastic.
So that's what we do.
Amazing. Yes, that is a big, hairy, audacious goal. Now, what I would love for you to tell the audience is why you're doing this, because this is a very personal mission, and it is something that you're almost born with. So please let us know what it is. What is your why? What is your guiding North Star?
Sure. So it's my, like, how you call it, the waking moment was when I was born. So it's
started early.
When I opened my eyes. So it was in French Guiana. So in French Guiana, when you grew up there, you grew up with the forest, with the Amazon forest. And so that's something I grew up with. I grew up like inside this forest. And even more, I had a father who was doing gold mining there. So when you do gold mining in French Guiana, you just deforest, you exploit the soil, and then you have to restore these lands that you've degraded before. And so that's something that when I was like high like this, we were talking about this. And my father was like, guys, because my brother is a co-founder, so he was looking at us on his mining site saying, okay, guys, later you will have to find good ways to restore, because for now, either we don't do it, or either it's like not really done well, like with one species, so it doesn't restore forest. It's like dead forest. So like 20 years later, around, my brother went to French Guiana. He worked on these ecological issues about the mining sites, about other issues. And he came to me and saying, okay, I think there's something now. Public institutions are aligned, NGOs are aligned, governments start to align as well. Companies start to have climate strategy, let's say it widely. There's an opportunity. Even financial people. We saw opening the Frontier Climate Fund from Alphabet, McKinsey, Stripe. We saw some like X Prize from Elon Musk. So many things happening. So you feel that there's a momentum, but nothing is really happening. So we said, okay,
this is the moment.
This is the moment, and we should start now.
And so what is really interesting with what you're doing as a nature-based solution is you're employing tech and you're using tech to be able to scale that. Can you tell us a bit about the myths around, some of the things we wouldn't know having not been working in the forest as to how things are done currently? And was it an obvious choice to go with tech, using planting drones, using satellites? It seems obvious now because that's what you've done, but was that something that you wrestled with, or was that an obvious kind of decision?
Yeah, sure. So we have 900 million hectares that are ready to be restored without impacting human activities. It's enormous. For now, there are like 8 million hectares restored per year, with an objective from the UN to restore 80 million per year. We are far from that. And there are amazing people around the world planting trees, planting forest ecosystems, but manually. And so these traditional methods, as I was saying, are slow. They are working, so that's already amazing, but it's slow. And so we need to increase the pace of forest restoration. So when we started, we were like, okay, we have this like indigenous knowledge. We have these people working in the forest restoration, doing this job well, but how can we scale? How can we go to large-scale forest restoration? And so we made many studies. We read so many scientific papers, so we didn't lose this time, but like it was a huge time to understand what has been done, not to redo everything, to start from zero, because many people worked on this study. And you had many things by helicopters, by plane. It was not accurate. It was like really costly. We need this cost-effective as well. If you need to scale, you need to be cost-effective as well. And so the drone is quite mature now. You have so many uses of drones in agriculture. So they know that they can build, many companies can build amazing drones. And so we use them. We took off-the-shelf drones, but we adapted to our system of seed pod that we developed to scale this reforestation. And going from this 1 hectare per day, we went to 50 hectares per day. And so that was quite obvious that we needed to scale this reforestation, keeping this quality of reforestation, because biodiversity is at the heart of all what we do. But yeah, that was the first part, and the second part of the technology we use is drone imagery as well, and satellite imagery, to make sure that the forests we are planting are actually growing and what's going on in the field, first to improve what we will do in the future, but to understand exactly what's happening on this forest.
So in terms of when we look at typical metrics that investors are looking at, you have gone down the VC route, which can be a very complicated process. Where's your IP? You don't own your own drone technology. We're not sure. You haven't built your own satellites. But you've got a very good tier one investor backing you on something that is a long-term impact, right? And a long-term solution. So what was your secret? What did you learn along the way? We'd love to share that experience and that knowledge that you learned.
So yeah, it's not that easy when you go to raise funds and you talk about forests, or saying that they will grow in 30 years, and they tell you, okay, we have 5 years to make you an exit, or to get money from you. So how do you reconcile these two words to raise money? Because this make things happen. Like the financial world can make what we do happen. So we had to find ways to get this short-term return on investment by building R&D, so building patents as well, but by finding different business models that could get us to make revenues fast, even with forests growing along the way, or around like over 30 years. And so that's what we did. We reconciled, thanks to many like great mentors and great help in Paris, and we thank them a lot. And we thank as well the VCs that trusted in us, because it was not that obvious that we could make these two words work together. But for now, and thanks to this happening, yeah, it's happening now.
So you've really been on the receiving end of that ecosystem play, in terms of there's been part of a movement and you've been part of that ecosystem. Have you got any specific ones that have been really helpful, like communities or ecosystems where you've seen real not just collaboration, but action as well?
So maybe not on this VC part, but I think all what we do is about the whole ecosystem. We talk about the forest ecosystem, but all what we do is about ecosystems. First, because on the field we work with seed collectors, which are gathered around NGOs. We have like preparations of the soil done by NGOs. We share the plantation. We don't do 100% by drones. We do usually 80 to 90%, and we have like 10 to 20% done by local population, local communities we are working with. And this is like the field collaborations we have, the ecosystem we are creating, which is absolutely amazing. When you see it, you see how we can improve the pace and even like create jobs. Even if you could think, okay, we use drones, we will destroy jobs. No, we are increasing the pace, so the fields they can restore is even more big than they could do before we came. So That's the first ecosystem we have, and we have this other ecosystem in Paris with other startups, with partners that can help us, the financial partners, because we have financial from the VCs, but we have to get money from companies to restore these lands. And you know, there's really like this change happening now, and we can feel it, and we can feel that we can foster it with having actual projects they can trust in and they can invest in.
Yeah, fantastic. And in terms of where you expect to go in the next 2 years, you know, we know that time is not on our side, but things are moving exponentially fast, especially as these worlds of climate and biodiversity finally are coming back together. Where do you see, how quickly can things move now, do you think, and where do you see Morpho going in the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, so I think there's this like momentum fostering and these big waves getting bigger and bigger, and we can feel it, and I think this whole event is about it. So we have this objective of improving the solution we are developing. We have many searchers like inside our team, but outside our team as well, with public laboratories in France and Brazil we are working with. And so the idea is to develop the best solution to restore degraded lands. So sometimes the lands don't have any more life, and you need to restore a forest, like a 30 years old forest that will be 20 meters high. And so that's our objective, to develop this perfect solution to restore lands around the world, but first in tropical areas, so Central Africa and Brazil mainly for now, and to restore this year about like 1,000 hectares, going to 5,000 hectares next year, and then like multiplying to go 1 million by 2030.
And who are the partners? Because you're now trying to bridge not just NGOs. I know you were moved very recently by your visit to Brazil in the impact that you saw there. You've got NGOs, you've now got businesses as well. You've actively chosen to work and create partnerships that wouldn't be happening if you weren't in business. So can you talk us about some of the lessons you've learned working with these very eclectic mix of people? So you're collaborating, but it's not enough just to come together, right? So what have you learned from being in those rooms, being in those conversations, and how you keep that collaboration going forward?
Yeah, that was something really like astonishing when I was in Brazil recently, because firstly I went to São Paulo, and where you have like all these financial people and really like amazing people and rich people in Brazil investing in this project, building things, amazing things in Brazil for forest. And the week after, I was in Bahia in our last project, and we met like Crispin, who is like a seed collector, who was like living in the streets 15 years ago, and now like he has the chance to live in a national park in Brazil and to collect seeds that we are buying. And you know, when you make these two people combine, like it's amazing. You see that we are a bridge between so many different ecosystems. But if we miss one of these ecosystems, nothing will work. And so we all need all these people together, and we are this bridge to build this forest for the next decades. I
mean, I'm assuming you hadn't got much experience with how to bring these different actors together. So did you have any help with that? Or is it just, we've got to do this, we're being pulled by the mission, and we'll find a way to make it work?
Yeah, I think it's mainly this way, but we really use, like, we have amazing help from the local NGOs who have been collaborating with these people, and we make the bridges between, like, many bridges as well. So, you know, you have like this seed collector being gathered into NGOs, and we gather the NGOs with other financial people, and so it's really like, yeah, many bridges being built, and it's an amazing network.
And so you talked about the fact that you've, prioritized ways of making revenue sooner. I'm assuming businesses come into that at some point. Can you tell us how you are able to help businesses get more involved in biodiversity, and what the sentiment's been from what's their reaction been to the work that you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So we have a first model in which we help companies to restore lands post-exploitation for some industries, for some infrastructures, and so they have legal constraints to restore the lands they degraded just before. And so for that, it's quite easy. It's like a model that we call reforestation as a service, and it's a fee per hectare. We analyze the zones, we plant, and then we monitor for at least 4 years, but ideally for 30 years. So that's the first model in which they are constrained to do it, and we offer them a solution to restore, but not only a monospecies forest, but like really biodiverse forest, and which is like
the ultimate.
Really important. Exactly.
The ultimate.
But it's key. And the second model is about something we are building and we are exploring about the carbon market, the voluntary carbon market, in which we can build as well a bridge, because we have a landowner on a part who was doing like agriculture or pastoral lands, but the soils are too degraded to continue doing this activity. So they have no economic use. On the other side, you have companies who have like climate strategy. So they reduce their emissions, but they have a residual carbon emission, and they need to capture carbon in the atmosphere. And so we need, in this part, and that was something that's been said, if they don't reduce, we don't have any how would say, our activity doesn't have any mean if they don't reduce further their emissions. And then we go to capture this emission. And forests can represent up to 35% to these global emissions, according to IPCC or GIEC. And so forest is an amazing tool to capture carbon emissions. And so we offer them projects for 30 years that will capture carbon in the atmosphere, but not only carbon, will restore and preserve biodiversity, will impact on social communities around the projects, and this is what makes the project viable along the years. And so we are offering them projects so they can have actual climate strategy and things happening on the
ground,
exactly,
in the soil.
Exactly.
I'm certainly hoping there's maybe a bridge between you and NatureMetrics somehow. I feel there might be some possibilities there. So as we come towards the end of this session, you know what's coming. Let's talk about something that is, does outrage you still, but also let's leave everybody with a sense of momentum about what you are really optimistic about. What is it that you're looking forward to? Yeah. So yeah, we'll start with the outrage.
Cool, thank you. The things that might make me outraged is it's kind of the blinkers we have in Europe about what's impact. And I was really surprised because I had this before going to Brazil, and when you see like the meaning of impact is not the same when you go to Central Africa, when you go to Brazil, and you cannot ask the guy who's collecting the seeds what's impact, because it doesn't have any idea of what's the meaning of this word. So I think the open-minded we need to have to understand what's impact on the global scale, because if we want to fight against climate change, is about this like open-minding, but worldwide, which is so hard to think about this guy who's collecting the seeds, and this guy in their office in Sao Paulo doesn't have any idea of what's happening. But to understand what's impact, we need to understand all the layers of the ecosystems we are like collaborating with to make this happen.
Yeah, both in the rainforest and in society.
Exactly.
But what are you optimistic about?
I think I talked about it already, but the whole ecosystems we have around us, even internally with our team, because we have so many different backgrounds, so many different nationalities inside our team. We have R&D about forest ecosystems, R&D about data science, computer visions, some forest engineers, some marketing people just here. So we have an amazing team in Brazil, in France, in Gabon. So this is what makes me so happy about what we do. And internally, and I already talked about externally, what's the ecosystem we're gathering with our project, but yeah, I think that's the way we'll have the biggest impact we can have, and the most powerful impact we can have.